I believe Demola is here. All right, so I'm just going to read a quick bio of Demola. Ademola Badmus is passionate about quality assurance, especially software. He conveniently and efficiently automates in Python for Selenium-based frameworks. He uses behaves with Python to implement BDD tests as well as robot frameworks for BDD and KDD, and also Cypress IO for non-Selenium-based frameworks. I'm sure that a lot of people will be wondering, maybe you know Python or Cypress. Don't worry, we would explain all these things to us. He automates using APIs with Python, Newman and Postman. He integrates works with CI pipelines like Jenkins and Circle CI. He performs loads of testing using JMeter and Locust with Python. He has an excellent knowledge of using Jira and Testrio. Fantastic. So that's a wonderful profile by Ademola. So right about now, Ademola would take on his own presentation, his own session with us. I believe you're ready. Please have your notepad, your pen right beside you. After his session, we're going to take questions. If you have anything you want to say to him, you have questions you want to ask him, please note them down. Once it's done, we'll take questions and then we'll go on to the next speaker. So Ademola, hi, it's good to have you here. You're currently muted and we can't see your face. I don't know if probably where you are, we can see your face. Hi Ademola. Ademola, can you hear me? You can hear me, you're muted. I don't know if Ademola is having challenges with his audio, or can you just give me like a few.
Guys.
Hi. Oh,
Hello.
fantastic. Hello. Good to have you, Demola.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. So
Yeah.
without further ado, oh, let me just make some corrections here. The framework is behave, not behaves. So, and
Apologies. Behave.
moving
You're
forward,
sorry
whoever
about
wants to
that.
ask question, just call me Badmos. It's a bit weird being called Ademola actually. Being
Okay.
called Badmos.
All right. Badmos it is then.
Okay,
Badmos.
so without further ado, because time is fast spent, I'm supposed to have started. I will be talking about developing and deploying an E2E test automation lifecycle. E2E means it means end to end. So there won't be any slides, but I'll just get right into it. Basically, it is assumed that there are like 6 stages in the cycle of automation, but in reality, it isn't 6 stages. So I will be picking this topic based on the experience as someone that automates and loves to automate. So and who has kind of moved around the industry and have experienced different things. So this is a practical experience. So when you want to automate, what is automation itself as regards software testing? It is basically about simulating what you test manually. You test a function manually, you automate it. Then why automation when you can actually test manually? You will need automation at some point when you realize that you have a lot of tests to run. When you have too many tests to run, automate some of them, simulate all those actions that you would do so that you would not spend much time doing the same thing. Because imagine if you have 1,000 tests to run. If you can have automation run like 700 out of them, it will be even faster than what you do manually. It means it has saved you time. So when you realize that, then you can understand what automation is. So it's not as if you're writing anything spectacular. So do not see it as, oh, I don't like coding and I don't like that. You should be interested in it because you're not doing anything new. You're just basically telling a script to do what you would do manually. So go to this page that I visit, insert this data that I usually do, press this button, move to the next stage, do this and that. That's all you're doing in automation. So now let's get right into it. The first and the most important thing you should read that really comes to mind in the stages or in the life cycle of automation is the decision to automate. Now it might look irrelevant, but let me just dive into it. You see, the thing is this: we as a person or as a company need to come to a decision that yes, we need to automate based on two factors. It's majorly two factors, but there are more. The first factor is how long is it taking to do the regression tests? so that when we deploy, how long does it take the QA to be able to say, okay, yes, we are done. So if it's already taking more than an hour, for instance, if it's taking more than an hour to finish regression test, that means we are taking too much time to test. And we really need to beat it, especially when you're in a pro startup environment. So we need to increase our time. We need to decrease the time it takes and increase our testing efficiency. So it means that yes, we need to introduce automation. Then the second thing is, do we have an environment that supports it? Now, environment in this scenario is our environment stable? Do we have individual nodes where we can say things, where we can put things? Because okay, do we have an established feature branch? Do we have an established test environment? Do we have an established staging environment? And do you have an established live environment? Is there a very big similarity between our staging and our live environment? What's test, staging, and live environment? Test environment is where everybody does the fun stuff. The developer works on a particular feature, tests it in the test environment. The tester picks that particular feature in the test environment, tests it as it is, brings it out of it, or merges what is in staging to that particular feature, checks it. Oh, it can integrate with what is in staging. So I think it's safe to put on the staging environment. Now, the staging environment is the pre-production environment. That is our last line of defense as a development team in a company. We check, oh, if everything works fine on this particular environment, when we push it to our customers, it should work fine. So, which means that staging and that live environment should have a lot of similarities. So now, where do we put our automation script? Do we have this environment established such that whatever we are doing on the test doesn't affect staging, whatever we are doing on staging doesn't affect live? I have actually worked in an environment where everything is jumbled up. If you push something, I'm not making this up, and I cannot mention names. So I can't see comments and don't know. So nobody should ask, please mention the name of the company. No, I won't. But I promise you, this has actually happened. It so happened that I almost got fired, but because I usually cover my bases, there was an email to the effect. I told them the conditions that you don't have stable environments, but why are you telling me to automate? So I automated and I put things on staging. And the next day, every hell broke. They were looking for me. They were like, things were moving from staging to live. I said, how should things move from staging to live? I only put automated script on staging for you people. And the head of QA could not say anything. He was just like, well, he did warn you guys. So, do we have a stable environment to do that? So, and do we have a stable pipeline? Not that we'll do something and the next thing, pipeline is hanging, pipeline is down. Pipeline will be discussed in plethora, probably by other speakers, but let me just quickly touch base on it. Pipeline is the word we use for continuous integration and development, such that for every time you add a new update to your code, there is a particular channel that tests the new update in a bucket and see that it doesn't affect anything else that has been done and it still moves you up seamlessly. So when those three things are actually considered, how long do we take to perform regression tests and all other tests before we can deploy? Do we have a stable environment and do we have a stable pipeline? Then we can begin to start automation. Hello, can you guys still hear me? Okay. I don't know if people can hear me and I don't know how to know if people are there with me. So please just bear with me. See,
We
it's as
can
if,
definitely hear you.
okay, good. So as it is, then we now begin the scope of automation. What do we want to automate? How do we want to automate it? And what exactly do we do? In this case, usually what I usually go for first is the critical path or the happy path. What is the critical part? The critical part for an application, for any given application, is that part that if any of that part fails, the application is certified not working. Take for instance, if you cannot log in into any application, what's the use of the application? The application is bad. So we automate those critical parts. Let's say it's an e-commerce application and you cannot check out. That's a problem. Or you cannot even search for products. Anytime you search, it just returns a blank page. So you automate those happy parts Then I also like to automate test scenarios that are very long. Like let's it is not we shouldn't talk about sign up. Sign up is advisable not to automate sign up, but that's a debate for another day. But let's say it's a test. Let's say it's not a course not a sign up, but you need to register courses, and you need to do this like 10 times because you want to register. Let's say it's a school application. You want to register 20 courses for the session, and you don't just put this name of courses. You put their curriculum and all that. There is a big form to fill. If it will take time to do all of that, you can automate that as well, right? Then one other part that I like to automate a lot, because it will lead to another thing that we'll talk about, is those parts that are usually often repeated. Like whatever test you want to do, you have to often repeat it. Example is login again. You know, when you want to use any application, especially applications that don't save login sessions, that when you log in, when you log in, right? Whether you log out or not, once you close the browser, if you try to open that browser again, you have to log in again. That means you have to always repeat that. So instead of testing that manually all the time, you can automate that. Then one other part that I like to automate are buggy parts, like those features that are usually buggy. I remember when I worked for one e-commerce company. That company, the only time I know that our search feature worked well was during those that November period, Black Friday. That Black Friday, it's as if the spirits that usually disturb the search feature is always subdued. But throughout the year, every other month, we just say search is broken, search is broken. We are fixing search. The algorithm is something, is this, is that. But once it is time for Black Friday to cash in, to cash out, this search will behave itself. But we add that search feature in our automated script. In fact, a separate test case like spec file was created for search. So with that being said, you now begin that means you've decided your scope of automation. Those are the things you want to automate. You already have them listed. Then the next thing is selecting the right tool. Now, this is subjective. It's subjective in the fact, in the sense that it is not just entirely up to the QA person to determine the right tool. It is about a collective decision, and this is why. It might mean that okay, yes, you might have like manual testers, but you are probably the only automation person, and the developers are always ready to help. So the developers may want to they don't want to shift their learning curve. Like, okay, yes, we write C# here, you understand? Just look for something that is C# and will also help you out. So it means that you might need to use C# and Selenium, and probably if they want BDD, you'll be using SpecFlow. Now that's one scenario. The other scenario is if it is entirely up to you as the QA team, as the head of the QA team or part of the QA team to decide the tool, you might begin to look at other metrics like, okay, ease of learning, ease of setup. Those two are very important, and this is why. When you begin to expand your QA team and you begin to bring people in, there are so many automation tools, you can't know everything. But what is the ease of learning it? Is it easy to learn so people can adapt? Because the thing is this, you cannot say, "Okay, we only want people that can use our tool. Those are the people that we want to hire." You might just hire the wrong person. Because there are QAs that have all the rights, they check all the right boxes, but they just don't use your automated tools. You understand? But the thing is this, when you learn through the best practices, it will be easy to learn other tools individually. So ease of learning, ease of setup, and runtime speed. Now, I have worked in 3 different organizations and we used 3 different things. One place we use Selenium and Python, the other place we use Robot Framework, the third place we use Cypress. Now, on ease of setup, Selenium wasn't it. Though it was even Selenium and Python, which is really relatively easier to set up compared to other tools that uses Selenium. You understand? It's one of the easiest tools to set up when you are using Python. We use that, but why? We use that because Selenium is open source and the developers were using the Selenium framework. They were tweaking it for our own advantage. It was a crypto company and they wanted to put some things and checks into their own Selenium framework. And because those developers were that good, they did it. You understand? So the other place we used robot framework. The reason we used robot framework was simple. The test people that were working before they were using BAT and PHP, Selenium and BAT. That was what they were using. But there was no learning curve to it. They make the framework there. They don't write new codes. They show them plug this here, plug this here, plug this here. So they don't have any automated no, automated programming knowledge. And they wanted to start writing. And robot framework is more or less purely English. You don't write anything, it's just purely English. So we move towards that. And because robot framework too runs fast, it sets up itself fast in the pipeline and it runs very fast. And where we are right now, we use Cypress because most of their framework is Java based. It's Java based and their front end is Angular. And Cypress was initially made to address some Angular issues before it became a very big and robust testing framework. So we began to use that. And they also later now realized that people coming in, it is easier to teach them Cypress than try to teach them what they were using before, Java and Selenium. Because the thing is, to even write a Java code, people get confused. So when you now want to pick your tool, have the particular metrics you want to check. Okay, yes. Do we need it internally for people to be able to tweak it? Okay. Okay, if it's just strictly for the QA to use, okay. When we begin to add people in, how easy would they be able to come on board and start using our tool? Then how fast is it for us? You understand? Then what other features does it bring in? You understand? So have those metrics in, then you are done with scope of automation. Then, you are done with selecting the right tool for automation. So now the next thing is now your strategy to writing your code. Hmm? Now this strategy, it is subjective. It depends on what the application does. If it's about, okay, you reading a lot from a file, getting things done, you understand. You already know that your bedrock is a data-driven test. You are doing a lot of data-driven tests because you need to fetch files, right? But the thing is, how do you now write your data-driven test? What is the scope? That still goes back to selecting the right tool again. Because when you are writing these things, the result of your end-to-end report is given to a product owner or a project manager. They use it to form an acceptance test manual for their user acceptance meeting with clients and all of that. Now, what do you do when they actually want to be inclusive in the code, in the scripting? They want to know what you guys are automating and all that. Okay. Now, do you still use, because you still need data, but can you represent data using test-driven approach, or can you represent this data using keyword-driven approach, or can you represent this data using behavior-driven approach? Like you just write out things in English, they can see, they can understand, but they don't know how the inner working is. But they actually say, okay, this scenario was automated, this scenario was automated, as opposed to any other thing. So based on the peculiarity of your project, what do you take? Do you need a lot of data? Do you need a lot of data? Do you need data to be fed into your script? You begin to think about that. Then after thinking about all of those things, one other thing that is very important that you should also talk about is the maintenance of your script. Because if you're using page object modeling brings clarity to your code. Know that. It brings clarity, but it also increases your cost of maintenance. And this is how. It means for new features that you want to come in, you must create a new object class, right? You must create a new object class. And that object class will be imported into the runner files for you to work, or probably your step implementation file if you're using BDD to work. So what that means is that if you're importing and all of that, by the time your code is being compiled to run, there'll be a lot of imports that must be resolved first and all of those things. So it becomes a bit longer to set up. But if you are caching things, it's still the same thing. You have some already cached into memory. Just something new will be updated to it and all that. And it means that every time you must always be careful when you're writing your code, because you would have all this done. Now, which also now relates back to what I said before, picking a tool, right? But in some other tools, the import thing is not a big deal, because there are so many ways you can use that tool that you don't even need to start using imports anyway. All you just need to do is, in fact, all the imports you will do it in just one single file. You will do all your imports in one single file. Unlike the way page object is, that okay, you have to create the object class, import the object class in a particular place, then import that particular file in the main file that will run. Like, just have like a load of import like that. And especially when you have a particular file, not even doing just a page object thing, but helping you to actually call an API, help you stop an API request so that you can set up a cookie inside your script. It becomes very high to maintain. So when you think about, okay, how can we make it less costly to maintain it? Then maybe you will now look at using reusable codes, using reusable methods and classes. So which means that instead of creating so many files, you will create fewer files because you've reused some of the codes. A typical example is, you know that for everything you do, you have to click, you have to type at some point, you have to verify a page, and you have to verify some elements on the page. So like those four things, they are common to every other test you can do. So rather than be having a method for, okay, I'm clicking login this, I'm clicking login here, I'm clicking payout here, I'm clicking search here, I'm clicking here. So if instead of having 10 click methods, you could have just one click method that would accept the elements you need to click. So which means you've saved yourself 10 more lines of code. Okay, so they said, let me just quickly round up. I think I have 2 more stages to go. So now, the next part is setting up the environment where your code will run. This one, it depends on the technology that you guys are used to. You understand? So the thing is, but when that is already established, in the first point I made, that okay, do you have a pipeline that runs? So when you have that environment, how do you want to set up your test on it? Do you want to schedule it? Do you want to just have it to be running as smoke test, like run at different intervals, regardless of whether there is a deployment, or you want it to run at every deployment, or you want it to run at a particular deployment? If there is a major deployment, it should be flagged. That means you'll not be using some flags and tags in your script to trigger it at a particular point. You understand? Or if you just want it to run a smoke test, you go into the pipeline and create scheduled jobs for it to run. Then moving forward now, after that, you can have your your test script and all that. You make sure that you revamp them to avoid flakiness. And in avoiding flakiness, one thing you should always do is try to avoid using expert a lot. Try to avoid using it. If time had permitted, I will talk about why you should avoid using experts. But even best practices wise, it discourages you from using experts. So try to avoid it as much as possible. And the last part of it is how do you generate your reports. You understand? So how do you want to generate it? Do you want to incorporate a dashboard tool where your reports go to? Or you want to generate it so that the report is stored inside the pipeline, that people can just go into the pipeline and see the reports? Whichever one you decide, it's just all about your decision. So that's my time. I'm done speaking. Thank you for having me. If you're saying anything, you're muted.
Yeah, I don't know if she's saying something. Eniola, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, please.
Please go ahead, Demola.
Demola is done speaking.
I'm
Can you
done
hear?
speaking.
I'm sorry, the network logged out at some point, so I didn't know you were done. All right, thank you very much. Thank you so much. That was very, I have to say, very deep session, because I mean, it took me a while. I started thinking about some stuff, right? And considering where I currently work, I start putting some of those things you said into play. Looking at my own place of work. Thank you so much. So we have a question. Please, guys, if you have a question, kindly drop it. So I have a question from John. He said during an interview, this question came up: Postman, manual or automation? And his response was that it works both ways. But in the interviewer said no, Postman is a manual. Um, Postman is manual. So as a Postman specialist, can you please explain? Is it manual or is it automation? I don't know if you understand the question.
Yeah, so let's understand what automation means first. So perhaps we'll just arrive at the answer. Automation means
We
no
lost both of
manual.
them.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. I think
Yeah.
both of you started
Yes.
again.
So, that being said, let us understand what manual and automation means. Automation means no manual involvement of any kind. Like, you don't have to use no human interaction of any kind. Everything is all automated. Something is triggered automatically and it triggers your Postman request automatically. That is it. Now, does Postman do that? Can it trigger itself automatically? If it can trigger itself automatically, then there is an automation in it. But we know that Postman can't trigger itself automatically. You will launch your Postman page. Even if you've created a collection, you have to click the run button on your Postman. It's only when anything can you carry your Postman framework, go and install it inside the pipeline? No. What you can do is you can export your JSON collection away from it. Then with the aid of a Newman dependency, run your Postman scripts, run your Postman collection in a pipeline. So anything that has the involvement of human interaction is not automated anymore. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I think
Yes.
yeah,
I
I
think
think
it
it does.
does.
Okay, so I think that where I wanted to comment also to add to what Demola said is the possibly where the person was talking about the automation is the scheduler. You know, Postman has the schedule feature in it where you can set your test to run at a certain date at a certain time. But that will be based on people that use Postman at premium version. You can then schedule your test to make your test automatically run at a certain date or time. But if you are not using a premium version, then it's still a manual approach. And I think that they are mixing up the testing IDE environment on Postman, you know, to call it an automation tool. Postman is a tool, like Demola mentioned, right? You can carry out both your manual tests and also write your automation test scripts in the test section of Postman. However, the capacity for you to be able to schedule your test to run by itself without your involvement is what makes it an automated tool. So I just thought to add to that. Thank you, Demola.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Princess. All right, then we have another question here. Using Cypress from Henry. So using Cypress, how do you undo automating test cases that can be saved just once, like creating a user?
Now, creating a user is more or less like sign up. Hmm? Now, usually I tell people avoid trying to automate sign up because it requires human intervention. You have to probably check a code to see that you've verified, or you go into your email to confirm the email. Now, can Cypress do that? Yes, it can do that in two ways. But the thing is, the first way is you can't, that way, the result of that way is that you'll be using an email server, which doesn't represent your true email, though you get an email in it, like using Melosaur. If you use Melosaur, you can automate it. Yes, it is doable. I've executed it before. Yeah, you can do that. But does it really represent what you actually need is debatable in your organization. Then the other way to automate that is polling Gmail. You have to use Gmail APIs. Now that is is of two types because if you are using an internal organization email, you would have a stable token. Let's say your company is using the G Suite, so which means they have like at Gmail, they have their own customized at gmail.com domain. It means that they would have an internal token which will remain stable. But if you want to use your normal Gmail to get the Gmail APIs, you always have to renew your token. And the thing is, the renewal of the token is not like, okay, every 7 days. You could do it today and it will require that you renew it today. And it won't request again for another 2 days. Then the next 2 days, it will ask you to renew again. Then another 1 week, everything is fine. Then it will start failing again. It will ask you to do everything every 6 hours, right? So with that being in mind, please avoid doing things that, okay, they are like primarily involves human intervention. But if you have to do it, I would recommend that use the Melosaw use the Melosaw approach, if that makes sense. Use the Melosaw approach. So I can see that someone wrote that time is up. Which would you advise one goes for, Java or Python? Because you said something about Java being somewhat complicated. I'm actually taking a QA course, and Java is what they decided to use. Yeah. So the thing is this: you can start with Java, you can start with Python. If you want a recommendation, go for an approach where you can easily learn the language used with Selenium. Now, if Java, because people's comprehension is quite different. If Java is very easy for you to learn Java. But what that means is that Python will be super simpler for you to learn. But that is just by the side. Why I actually did say that learn a particular language that is easy to learn and you understand it is based off experience. When you get some interviews, don't expect them to just give you, oh, go and automate this for us. No. There are two things that they will do. You will automate something, you bring it, they will now ask you to defend it. They will now start asking you programming specific questions. So if you don't understand the language you use to automate, it becomes a problem. I've actually seen someone that I was part of the interview panel and I didn't even say much. It was the CTO that was interested because the person liked Java. This person automated very good thing, but did it in Java and Selenium. And he was asked to, okay, so this particular method, what data type does it return? The guy could not understand what that person was saying, because it's easy to follow through. It's easy to follow through steps. You understand? It's easy to follow through steps. Okay, this is how to do it in Java. This is how to set it up. But do you understand the methods? Do you understand how to create a class in Java? Because Java is strictly type language. You understand? So it got to that point. Or you may get to an interview and they say, okay, come and write a code. Since you use Java to automate, come and write a code for us in Java. But you can't do that. It becomes a problem. So go for something that you can easily learn on the side without Selenium with it. That's my advice.
Thank you very much, Demola. So, because of time, we would take the other questions subsequently. Other speakers will take the question. But thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing listening to you. Thank you so much.
That's all
So,
mine.
going to say goodbye to you. Thank you for your.
Yeah, I just want to quickly step out a bit. I'll be back into the code.
All right, fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.